There have been times throughout WWE history where a wrestler has done something wrong in the eyes of WWE management, specifically former WWE chairman Vince McMahon. But instead of punishing that specific wrestler internally with a fine or suspension, WWE will outright bury that wrestler on screen by having them lose either a high-profile match or lose in an outright random or embarrassing manner. More often than not, the reason that the wrestler was buried is nonsensical, but this was unfortunately a common practice in the old era of WWE. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 times WWE purposely buried a wrestler on television. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out Wrestlelamia.co.uk and our non-wrestling channel, Incredible. Number 10. MVP. When MVP first arrived in WWE, he was presented as an instant main eventer. MVP had a great look and had a tremendous presence as an on-screen character, and he would soon embark on one of the longest US title reigns in WWE history, as well as take part in an oddball tag team with Matt Hardy, which was universally acclaimed by fans. However, upon eventually losing the US title, MVP would be completely buried. He would go on to have an extensive losing streak, which completely killed every ounce of credibility he had. According to reports at the time, it was speculated that MVP was being buried due to the potential contract issues. Whatever the reason though, it dimmed MVP's spark so much so that he departed WWE in 2010, seeking to work in other promotions such as New Japan Pro Wrestling. Number 9. Raven. Raven was a wrestler who had a ton of potential, specifically during the Attitude Era. Unfortunately, Vince McMahon never seemed to get what Raven could bring to the table, and one specific incident resulted in McMahon deciding to bury Raven on WWE television. According to Bubba Ray Dudley on Busted Open Radio, McMahon opted to bury Raven because he interrupted him whilst he was eating. He revealed,
Raven wanted to present Vince with an idea. Well, he sits down and Raven starts pitching him this idea. And the idea is built around the movie Seven with the 7 deadly sins. And Raven's got page after page after page of things that he wrote down. And he goes, Vince, can I pitch you a story? And Vince did not want to hear it. He just wanted to eat. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And Raven starts, reading off the paperwork, and he goes, all right, the character Raven, set back, 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And Vince stops him and he goes, wait a minute. Blah, blah, blah? You really need to tell me you wrote blah, blah, blah on the paper? You interrupt me while I'm eating to tell me blah, blah, blah? Why don't you pitch me the right way?
The former hardcore champion would proceed to be relegated to Sunday Night Heat. McMahon's opinion of Raven has been officially diminished to a point of no return. Number 8. Cedric Alexander. A former WWE chairman, Vince McMahon, previously loathed when wrestlers deviated away from his direct orders. In 2019, it was reported that Alexander had refused to follow a direct order from McMahon, and according to Kurt Angle, this was the beginning of the end of Alexander's WWE career. Following this act of defiance from Alexander, McMahon would insist that he would be buried in a definitive manner in a match with AJ Styles. This resentment McMahon felt towards Alexander would continue in 2020 when he was removed from the Hurt Business, as McMahon didn't want him receiving a huge push. This was a decision which received extensive criticism, as Alexander was delivering arguably the best work of his entire career as part of the group. Number 7. Brian Kendrick and Paul London. On the September 17, 2007 edition of Raw, Triple H would soundly defeat Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch in a handicap match. This was a questionable decision, as the game defeated one of the WWE's top teams by himself, and getting the win with a spinebuster didn't exactly give any credibility towards Cade and Murdoch. Nevertheless, it was the post-match shenanigans that caused controversy. Following Triple H's win, Carlito would perform a run-in to attack the game, and this was when Brian Kendrick and Paul London would run in to make the save. For whatever reason, Triple H performed a pedigree on both men, to the confusion of fans in attendance. This completely buried one of WWE's most beloved tag teams and made them look like idiots in the process. The common belief was that this was punishment for London infamously breaking character and grinning during the infamous segment a few months earlier in which Vince McMahon's limo exploded. Number 6. Finn Balor. The TLC 2017 was one of the finest nights of Finn Balor's career. Balor would defeat AJ Styles in a classic matchup, but the next night, Balor was completely buried in a match by Kane. Kane would defeat Balor with 3 consecutive chokeslams, and fans were quick to question what on earth WWE were thinking. Now, it was worth noting that Kane was semi-retired at this point, and he didn't need a win of this nature, especially against someone as popular as Finn Balor. According to the reports at the time, Vince McMahon was angry with Balor following the TLC pay-per-view. Following Balor's match with AJ Styles, Balor and AJ would perform a 2 Sweet, but this wasn't in the initial script. Going off script in this manner was a big no-no under Vince McMahon's watch, so McMahon decided to punish Balor with the unceremonious loss to Kane. Number 5. Karrion Cross. NXT, specifically Triple H, managed to present Karrion Cross as a legitimate, credible star on the brand. However, upon Cross being called up to the main roster, Vince McMahon seemingly did everything in his power to kill Cross's mystique and outright bury him as a character. Cross would debut on the main roster in the summer of 2021, and he would lose his first match on TV against Jeff Hardy. Cross was NXT champion at the time, so this was a dire representation of Cross and the NXT brand. It was reported that McMahon wanted to send a message to NXT talents that he didn't care about the brand. This is why he was burying him. This was backwards logic, and it was almost as if NXT wasn't a part of WWE. Cross would eventually be released by WWE as McMahon claimed he couldn't get over. Thankfully, Triple H would bring him back in the summer of 2022, and Cross has been presented with credibility and respect ever since. Number 4. Triple H. Now, believe it or not, there was actually a point in WWE history where Vince McMahon decided to bury Triple H. This took place following the infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden, which saw the Click break kayfabe to embrace each other in the ring. Click members Kevin Nash and Scott Hall couldn't be punished by WWE as they were WCW bound, and in relation to Shawn Michaels, he was virtually untouchable, and this meant it all fell on the game. Triple H was initially booked to win the 1996 King of the Ring, but these creative plans were cancelled instantly, and instead the prestigious crown was awarded to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Triple H was set for a main event level push, but he was relegated to the lower mid-card for the next few months, working with talents that certainly weren't on his level. Some wrestling personalities such as Jim Ross and Jim Cornette have gone on record to state that Triple H shouldn't have been punished for his involvement in the curtain call, and it was just a load of political nonsense. Number 3. Rey Mysterio. At WrestleMania 22 in 2006, Vince McMahon reluctantly agreed to allow Rey Mysterio to win the world title. At this point in time, McMahon had no faith in Mysterio as a main event level star, as he believed he was simply too small to be a top guy in the company. Although McMahon agreed to make Mysterio world champion, Mysterio's world title reign was a disaster, as McMahon would bury Mysterio every chance he could get. During his reign, he would lose to the likes of the great Khali, Mark Henry, Finlay, and RVD. McMahon was taking immense pride in burying his own champion, which was a complete waste of time and resources. If McMahon devoted time into making Mysterio a credible champion, then he could have had a fantastic reign, but McMahon refused to put his stubborn opinions on hold for the greater good of the company. Number 2. Bray Wyatt. When Bray Wyatt was released from WWE in 2021, it was revealed that Vince McMahon had a personal vendetta against Wyatt, and the two would often get into heated arguments. It was believed that McMahon's dislike came from him taking issues with Wyatt, calling out poor WWE creative, and McMahon responded by burying Wyatt in matches and even to his face by making negative comments about his physique. The greatest example of Wyatt being buried in WWE was back in 2020 when they did the unthinkable. They would have Goldberg defeat Wyatt to win the Universal title. Wyatt looked completely incompetent in the match, and it could be argued that the loss to Goldberg killed every ounce of credibility and mystique Wyatt's popular Fiend character had. This completely deflated fans, and it was clear from this point onwards that McMahon was never going to give Wyatt the appreciation he deserved. And number 1, Dean Ambrose. In January 2019, WWE made the bizarre and rare move to announce that Dean Ambrose will be leaving the company in April. Fans believed this to be a storyline due to the unusual nature of the announcement, but it was in fact legitimate, and Ambrose was actually leaving the company. WWE would present Ambrose in a weird manner following the announcement, and it was apparent that they were outright burying him. Ambrose would begin on a program with Nia Jax, which was clearly designed to make him look weak, and WWE were even going to deliver an Ambrose vs Nia Jax match, but it was eventually cancelled. Ambrose would discuss WWE, specifically Vince McMahon burying him during his final few months in the company during an appearance on the Talkers Jericho podcast, as a former WWE champion revealed.
Because I'm hoping that he just writes me off TV that night. he's like, yeah, and we'll just finish up at Mania, you know, and whatever. And he's like, hey, we're not going to bury you on the way out or anything like that. And I went, actually, it's funny you mentioned that because that's the reason I stormed in here. Because it looks to me like that's exactly what the you're doing. And he goes, oh, no.
But there you have it, folks. 10 times WWE purposely buried a wrestler on TV. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.